My name is Linnell Ramey. I'm the executive director for Mentor Greater Milwaukee. I've been with the organization 5 years, over 30 plus years in nonprofit. His voice matters because I think it's important that men speak about the issues. One, to break down barriers. Two, to make sure there's understanding. Too often we're silent and not having conversations about the real issues. And I think it's important, and particularly right now in this political environment where there seems to be a divide amongst even us men on what to think and how to feel. For me personally, I believe it's super important politically that we're looking out for those that need help the most. When we're thinking about our population of people who are struggling, not just financially, but when you think about education system, when you think about the judicial system, I think it's important politically that we have those conversations as well and not just have one lane conversations. So that's why I believe it's so important that men have dialogues. And it's okay to disagree on whatever pathway someone wants to go, but it's important to talk and have real communication because without real communication, there can't be understanding. And for me, that's important. In particular, with serving young people who I cherish and adore the most in this world.
Hello.
How you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for coming and joining us on the His Voice series.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So you represent Mentor Greater Milwaukee. I knew you were the perfect person to talk about specifically mentorship. You know, just seeing how people evolve into being politically active.
Yeah.
What is your take on what you're seeing today? And then how are we mentoring the next generation to be involved?
Well, my take, first of all, is it's tough because right now there seems to be this divide, right? They say don't talk about politics. Well, we're talking about it because it's bringing back kind of this feeling of disregarding us as a community, right? And when you hear words about Black jobs or you hear words about them or things that make us feel lesser than, I think it's important from a mentorship standpoint to educate even a younger generation who may not understand the full essence of all of what racism is, right? When you think about even 1619, moving into, the 50s and 60s and all of that. So they might not even understand the importance of even Roe versus Wade.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, mentorship is about being able to be a guide on the side with a young person so they're able to navigate what they're hearing and what they're seeing so they can get a better understanding on why it's important when an elder generation is speaking versus what they're hearing. So mentorship is really important to that. And regardless, again, of who you're voting for or what side you're on, it's great to have somebody who's willing to be honest and have a real conversation about mentorship with a young person in this time of politics, because there's a lot of confusion happening, a lot of words getting thrown out. And if we don't really talk about or really talk to a younger generation, they're going to get lost in kind of like the rhetoric of politics. And we got to change that.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were ever lost? You've been around a little bit.
I'm an elder now, right? You can say it. I got it.
Almost.
Yeah.
You're still young, fresh blood.
Okay, thank you.
But do you ever feel like you were lost? Think about the times when you first started voting. When was the first time you voted? Who was the first president you voted for?
Holy moly. I'm going to show my age. I voted when I was 18. But for me, here's the difference. I was a freshman at Morehouse College.
Okay.
So it was taught on that campus, it's our responsibility to be involved in a process, i.e. the voting process. So for me in 1990, I think the president, it would have been Bill Clinton coming up, if I want to say correctly. And coming out of the Bush era, and I mean, I'm speaking just from a mentorship standpoint. At the time, my parents, like the Bush administration, we didn't support. So it was important for us to have a real conversation about, hey, this is why we don't. And my parents were very, I think, fluid in that. But then when I was at Morehouse, it was expected that we vote.
Okay.
So that's for me, I remember, but there was also a sense of peer mentoring going on. So my other freshmen in college, sophomores, and you add the juniors and seniors who were 23, 24, they're like, no, brother, you have an obligation to do this. So that's where peer mentoring comes in. And that's why mentorship is so important, because elders have a responsibility, but then we have a responsibility to each other to make sure we're pushing positivity in a way, in particular around politics,
Yeah.
that gets people to have a real conversation.
So at your organization, is there anything you all are doing around this election season to help move the needle?
We are being very mindful that it's a very strange election. And we really want to make sure that all young people are supported. So when you think about mentorship, again, we just want to make sure young people are getting the right information. Here's part of the issue we see with a divide. We believe mentorship can also break down this issue of racism, prejudice, because when you have conversations with someone that doesn't look like you can start have different understanding on why someone may think the way they do. And so we really are pressing the issue around cultural humility around this time we're living in, because we believe during this time, it doesn't care where you come from. It's about, do you have an understanding of who I am as well?
Yeah.
'Cause I have to respect who you are, but is there an opportunity for us to understand one another? So maybe I can understand why you're thinking a certain way, even if I don't agree with it, right? But this is a time right now that we're stressing and mentoring, in particular, culture humility. So when you're working with a young person, in particular, that doesn't look like you or come from a background like you do, are you respecting who they are and not just putting on something because you think that's the right thing to do? So
Yeah, and I like that you brought up respect, because that's key. And
yes,
and it seems to be a challenge given like what we see online, how people are treating each other, talking to each other. Like respect seems like it's just
it's
out
thrown
the
out the
door.
window. It's thrown out the window. Like when you have a debate where one of the candidates doesn't even refer to the other person they're debating by name, that's an insult. Like we have to step back and say, listen, at the end of the day, it's about respect. Like you and I can go interview for the same job. Am I about to disrespect you and call you name because we're at the same? No, that's not how it works. Like I should stand on my own merit. And if I can do that, then it's all about respect. And I think that's what we got to get back to. I think that's why even in his series, My Voice, regardless if another brother has a different mindset politically, I have to learn to have respect and just understand, I don't think like you. That's not what I think. Do you? And walk away and still be cordial. We have to bring that back to the table,
Yeah.
so we can have a better understanding.
Yeah, indeed, we do. We have to be open, having the open dialogue. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion and really get to hear your voice, his voice, because we often don't get to hear his voice as often. And I think it is crucial, it's critical that we hear your voice, especially in this time.
It's time.
In this time, we have to hear what you have to say, how you feel, and how you're contributing.
And you know what? And it's frustrating during this time. And we don't talk about that enough. Like, to your point, like my voice or certain people's voices get muted because they're frustrated.
Right.
Even if they're seeking understanding, if you mute someone's voice or their opportunity to speak about what they're feeling, they're just going to continue to feel what they feel, but then have a disdain for you.
Yeah.
Like it's so important right now, in particular politically, let somebody speak about why they think the way they think. There may be points to be like, I never thought about that. But did you ever think about that? And they may have never thought about that. So we've got to open the doors and the line of communication that allows that frustration to be put to the wayside. As a father, a father of 8, all adults, all of voting age, they have different perspective than I do. If I just mute my children alone and not allow them an opportunity to feel, think, process, then I'll be doing disservice. I have to repeat that with any young person that comes in my presence, or better yet, anybody that comes in my presence, because that's what teaches us to learn to listen to one another and learn from one another at the same time.
Yeah. I love it. It's that talking, having those circles, leading to having healing circles
Yes.
about how we're feeling and what we're facing today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thanks for having me. I
for
appreciate
coming
it.
on His Voice series.
Say less.
And I appreciate everything you are doing in our community to make the world a better place.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Yes.
Thank you for watching His Voice series. And for more content, subscribe, watch, learn, and be inspired.